thing. He's a good guy. He gets
I'm with that.
yeah.
But I'm gonna have to deal with it because it's not gonna change.
Yeah. It's only going to get more accentuated, you know? Yeah, I got about a decade on you, and I can relate to what you're saying. See where all those trees are? That's the Rouge River. So it's like a covered bridge you can walk over, and like there's a field there with like a hill, you know, and so we kind of sat on the hill for the concert. The stage was set up like right by the river. That's it.
Of course, they're anonymous. Christmas. Not really. Like it matters.
I like the PF Chang's. Yeah.
Just like in those pictures over there.
Oh. Is that her Emma in the suit?
No, I don't think. But if you go back on those other ones,
Yeah.
like where she's like kicking. I've got my leg out.
So maybe that's slightly. There's like no artist.
Yeah. Best deal in
It's just
town.
like skunk musk scented cologne is what.
Detroit. Sounds like a cool place. Maybe I should visit there someday. Coming together is the beginning. Staying together is progress. And working together is success. Oh yeah, I can see it.
Never seen driving like this before, I'll tell you.
So cheesy. The food truck. String cheese on the sidewalk. This reading is off to a good start.
Or the right reader, it doesn't find the person's like your taste or
How much coffee did they drink?
Yeah, right.
Were they accidentally a coffee drunk? just send it to 15 places. Yeah. Like 15 top tier places. Like the Dearborn Military went to. Like, look at these places. Right.
I know, I was trying to get Rustin from the construction sub for his floor.
And then to make it close to the graphic. But I feel like I should have. I don't want to show it. So.
Liked, okay, you'll know what I'm talking about. The tin of loose buttons. You probably inherited it from a couple people, or it's just passed around the family. It's just like always in your house. And you go in every now and then, you discover something new, right? I feel like that's what Sarah's writing is, and then somehow she manages to reach into that bin and pull out all the coolest stuff that somehow works together. And you're about to experience this, and I'm right, okay? So when she gets done reading, you'll be like, yeah. But yeah, so get ready to let everything sort of come together in this really fascinating way, all right? Let's make some noise for Sarah.
Hey, first things first, let's give it up for John Cal Freeman. It's such a privilege to open the evening, but also I feel so lucky I get to be married to my favorite poet. So, I get to hear this all the time. So you're in for a treat. I'm going to kick off this poetry reading with some prose. Yeah! All my prose writers out there. I started a new series with a friend that I met in an online class during the lockdown. We took a food writing class together, and then we just stayed in contact, and we both really like to try new restaurants and write about food. She lives in San Diego, and so we kind of do these little email exchanges with each other that I started calling little bricks. So I'm going to read 2 of these little bricks to you, and they're kind of like observational sketches of life in small restaurants. So mine are, Detroit and beyond, and she responds with her writing from San Diego. So the first one I'm going to read is La Feria, Detroit, Michigan, August 23rd, 2025. M. My mom's obsessed with the Blessed Mother, so I invite her to the exhibition Divine Impressions, Italian Masters to Detroit Voices at Gallery Camille. Replications and reimaginations of the Madonna and Child motif. The gallery is attached to one of my favorite restaurants, La Feria, and we eat there after the show. Have I told you about my mom? I'm always writing towards her, but I can never quite get there, get her. I frequently set myself up to be disappointed. It's not her fault. She's thoughtful, kind, patient, loving, and prudish. It was a risk inviting her to something that might subvert the Mary of her wholesome imagination. Leading up to the show, my sisters texted me promotional posts from the gallery's Instagram. A naked, fleshy, oversized Madonna sprawled out in a bed, breastfeeding. Think Mom would like this one? Mom studied art education, was my art teacher in high school. Maybe the perennial letdown is that I want her to be an artist, and she isn't. After we view the show, there's a panel discussion and a Q&A. My mom says she noticed the long neck on Mary. Are you influenced by Modigliani? She asked the artist. Oh, this isn't mine, the woman says. It was a replication of the Madonna and Child from the 14th century. Another artist chimes in that everyone sees the Madonna they want to see. Sometimes I want her all to myself. I rarely see my mom without other family around. We walk through the adjoining hallway to the restaurant and settle in at a 2-top. She orders a rum and Coke. I get a glass of Guardino Sauvignon Blanc. So do you think that one woman was a feminist? She wants to know. Then tells me how she felt bad for the men in the audience who had to hear her talk about birth and stretch marks. The food is immaculate. Our appetites and tastes are in perfect sync. Ice-cold ensalada mista that we eat off the same plate, 2 juicy skewers of pincho maruno de pollo, gambas a la ajillo with extra baguette slices to dunk in the oil, and a mound of glistening patatas bravas drizzled with spicy tomato sauce and thick, eggy aioli. We send pictures to my sisters, pack leftovers for my dad. Talk soon. The next one is from Lake Street Emporium, Port Austin, Michigan, September 20th, 2025. M. I'm at a breakfast counter inside the Lake Street Emporium, waiting on a bagel sandwich and thinking about your comment on the futility of chasing authenticity in food. Some might describe where I'm at as a real American restaurant, a 1948 lunch counter, probably the original, inside a drugstore turned souvenir shop. You might imagine eggs and bacon, hamburgers and milkshakes, but outside the front door, the deli sign says, homemade kielbasa. Inside, we are surrounded by nautical trinkets, Polish pottery, Port Austin sweatshirts, and lake life tchotchkes. A seafoam green vintage malt machine collects dust behind the counter. Fox News is streaming above our heads. The Coca-Cola specials board advertises a prime rib panini for $14.99. I'm disappointed I won't make it out to see you in San Diego this year. To see the Torrey Pines, the electric blue Pacific frothing below, the way the coastal winds morph the maritime chaparral into bonsai shapes. I once had a professor who said she needed to visit the ocean periodically to reassure herself that the world was intact. But shorelines expand or shrink by 10 feet in a human lifetime. Where's the comfort in the ever-changing coast? My connection to the city goes back to childhood. My late Aunt Florence, my grandfather's sister, lived in San Diego, and I used to write her letters, visit her mission-style bungalow with its terracotta roof and stucco walls. She moved there with her husband, who hit her. It's sad, but when I think of her now, the fist is gone. I just think of the strength it took her to leave him and stay out west as a single woman. I think of the myth of the frontier, California Romantica. After she moved, she sent me a coat that I wish I could pass on to my own niece. A quilted turquoise jacket with pink buttons that I loved with all my heart. Even at 4 years old, it was my taste. A jacket I would have begged my parents to buy me. Today, I'm with John on our 20th wedding anniversary trip in Port Austin, a gift he gave to me. Years ago, from the second floor balcony of our surfside rental, Sandcastles on the Beach, we watched a family row into Lake Huron's steel blue water and ceremoniously scatter a family member's ashes. Scatter me in Saginaw Bay, I tell him. I already know, he said. I try to read Kate Zambrino's animal stories, but I'm distracted by the flood of customers. Zambrino wrote about visiting the Jardin des Plantes with her daughter. She describes zoos as complex psychic spaces that are more often than not deeply sad, an odd choice for a regular pilgrimage of fun. When I was 12, Aunt Florence insisted we go to the San Diego Zoo. It's regarded as the best in the world, she said. I remember taking the Discovery Cart tour and being underwhelmed. What you said about your impression of European parents, how mothers, not children, dictate the day's activities, made me wonder about the nature of Zambrino's own mother-child symbiosis. Did she first intend to write about the zoo and take her children along with her? Or did they beg to go and she wrote about it after? A couple comes in and orders 2 turkey sandwiches to go for later. They're probably going on a boat ride. These must be boat sandwiches, or beach sandwiches. Either way, there's something endearing about people who plan ahead for meals. I'm always thinking about what's for dinner. The cook stands at the hot griddle while our eggs bubble. He flips them, places 2 slices of orange cheese on top, and smothers them with a lid to steam. He toasts my everything bagel and John's English muffin. He assembles our breakfast sandwiches, slices them into symmetrical halves, and places them in red and white checkered boats. Those iconic paper ones, American symbols of deep-fried carnival food and canteen French fries, designed after red-sailed Chinese junk boats, Aqua Luna. Our waitress presents them proudly. I bite through the bagel's shiny top, full of sesame and poppy seeds, salt crystals, and crispy garlic bits, into the soft, gooey center. Eggs over medium, like I wanted, and melty American cheese, the only kind for a proper breakfast sandwich. How do they taste, she wants to know. The everything spice clings to my lips. Delicious, I manage to say between chews. The coffee is Maxwell House, served in styrofoam cups so you can take them to go. Our waitress returns, raises the steaming pot into the air. One for the road? I push both of our cups to the silver edge of the Formica countertop and watch her pour. The hot coffee rises to the brim like the dark water of a back dune swale.
Woo. That's poetry, I'm sorry to show you. So there you go. Oops, it's all poetry. Up next, we have, oh my gosh, Michael, start walking up here now, I guess. Up next, we have Michael, who, dear Lord, do not tell this man that anything in the vicinity is broken, right? Because not only will he, like, fix it, he'll know how to fix it, he'll tell you how to fix it, in like the most judgmental way possible. Like, he genuinely wants you to be able to understand the world. And that's how he approaches most things. The thing is, like, if he's fixing your plumbing, you're also going to have to hear like all the apocrypha of everything about plumbing since ancient Greece. And you're like, Michael, it's Hamtramck. Also, the last time he read here, the toilet was broken and he tried to fix it. And then, I want to say 2 days ago, our toilet broke again, and I was like, I swear to God, fix it before he gets here. But no, he's an amazing human being. He's a phenomenal poet. Kind of all the best parts of city poetry that I admire. And let's make some noise for the man.
John just gave me this wonderful exotic piece of clothing accessory. I think I might do that. We'll try. And I so appreciate that. I love that. Thank you for those wonderful introductions. And it is true that the only thing better than fixing things is talking about fixing things. And one of the great things about having really old people around is that there are no short stories because everything connects to everything else, which is like plumbing. No. This is it's really a joy to be here. I'm really excited for John. I'm really excited for this new book. And Dustin's got some books back there. Sarah's got a new book that is about to emerge into print, and this is really fun. It's a lot more fun than, say, February 2nd, when I fractured my ankle. And wonderfully, after that, first of all, John drove me to school, but he also came over, and Stacy and Stephen drove me to school. And John came over and shoveled the walk. There were 3 flakes, and I felt really loved. This is entitled After a Fracture. And the title reads as part of the first sentence, if you want. After a fracture, I use a cane, a crutch, passing rails and chair backs, and hop from there to here like a weary 3-legged dog at the end of a walk that's not really a walk. I can't walk for now, so I lunge one-footed, careening through the house, knocking plates and cups and papers from every surface. It was easy walking the dog, walking the floor, walking my baby back home, the walking blues, and feet in lines of iron stripped nicely off the tongue, even while walking back a lie. Since the Rift Valley, it's so human strolling through a park or meandering down the dairy aisle or dragging a cart bearing a few possessions and fleeing a new round of bombing. Soon it will be warm and I'll lean on my left and then on my right, a miracle of human mechanics, propelling myself at will in search of a place to strike a posture of repose. We're sharing with Stacy and John and Jennifer and talking about this as well. The whole idea of writing poems as emphasizes the poet as the speaker as speaker. But I get away from that a lot, and I've been trying to get back to it. And I do feel like, anyhow, so I have a series of things that have to do with like dialogues and asides. So this is decade. Okay. We fail to name and fail to know, said my bartender friend, and I agreed, swirling my ice, trying to decide whether he'd represent the phenomenological or epistemological school of mixology. But now I want to know, during a day's blaze and boom, how to see through smoke. So I call him too early from a weedy patch in my garden where a purple clematis scales a rusty fence. Wait, he says. I tell him I'm no monastic. I can't, with children wailing in the kitchen. Wait. I can spend an hour at his bar, but I can't pray a decade or pretend to find alchemy in a page of text. For some reason, he recounts how Jung dreamed the world bathed in blood in the winter of 1913. When I tell him I see flames sometimes in my own late-night cinema of the cruel, my friend goes silent. In a post-millennial, post-Socratic, post-Jungian trance, I wait, and a finch descends to cling to a mesh feeder to pull the irresistible thistle into his throat. I wait because of dreams and a crude imperative in my cells, and because I'm connected to a snoring friend. This is a plot device. Again, accidents have been on my mind, you know, and I started thinking about accident. And of course, the dumbest thing you can do in a piece of fiction is like have an accident that resolves things. So, but Shakespeare did a lot of that, right? And we all do. Plot device. Turning into an alley behind a church, I get smacked by a van flying past in the parking lane, and spin to a stop at the curb. And before I can undo my seatbelt, the manic driver is calling on God and neighbors, neither respond, threatening to beat my ass and also trying to wheedle cash from me, which makes him seem familiar and harmless. A guy who's a pain at work if you're stuck near enough to hear his ranting radio. No one was hurt. Everyone lost money. But the crunch and twirl and time yawning open all reminded me of something Shakespeare's troupe never forgot. The shipwreck seems a mere device, but it's real. Likewise, the storm holds us, has held us, will hold us in its thrall. If you're housed, dry, and safe tonight, light a candle and enjoy the hour. Everything starts with the cliche of falling on ice, falling from a ladder, falling in love, and ends. Accident and more accident, and accidentally I speak, snatching swaths of costume and scenery along the way. At least we ended together, say musicians, pressed into service at a friend's funeral. Thinking about Dan Wickett, who was precious to many of us, and passed away. Dan was such a quiet presence and somebody I did not know real well, but was gifted by, and just have to acknowledge that. Okay. Here's an aside, and of course I can't resist the aside myself. That's the title, so apologize. Begins with a quote from Henri Cole: "My mind is not itself." And the accident of this is that we actually were in the hospital during January 6th. So I was in the waiting room while a personal crisis was going on in Washington, public crisis. So I draw on that this morning. aside myself. During your heart attack, I wore a mask in the waiting room, watching as the Capitol was breached while they drew blood and stuck terminals to your skin. They beat a cop with a flag, and it wasn't, in the end, a heart attack, though the Capitol fell and kept falling and still falls. Now I'm waiting in another hospital, reading an old New Yorker reporting on Iceland. So much lava and ruin and cortisol, but I'm no longer really reading. My eyes trace lines, words, letters, until I'm only waiting, thinking of Cole's line. Nor mine, I hear my voice answer. Nor is my mind itself, nor mine. Not even my voice. How little remains, I say softly, to a wall-mounted screen where a couple discuss granite countertops. And I'll end with this tribute to redundancy. This is entitled The Blazing Redundancy. I have another poem against originality. So apparently I'm trying to make room and create an aesthetic that accommodates my greatest faults. Right? So, but there's McCoy Tyner plays a solo in John Coltrane's version of My Favorite Things, in which he plays the same note for 4 measures. And it was just like a really bold, I mean, it was a really bold thing to do 70 years ago. The Blazing Redundancies. Whitman's psalm lifted anaphora, in one note repeated for 4 measures in a McCoy Tyner solo. And every blues with rivers of whiskey, every dancer's tossed hand in a wave above her head, every wave, also every loudspeaker chant pointed at our demigods from the curbstone or sidewalk, campus lawn, and the paced breath of a nurse during CPR, the echoing beat returning to the heart, the call and response of a game of catch, the click of dominoes in a park where oak and maple and birch renew their sleepy rivalry and clutch the rocky earth through each windy upheaval. I've sought the novel and been a fool. I peered at like a boy watching a house fire, recording every glowing, crashing beam. Yet I'll save my praise for touch and rewrap bandage and splinted bone, for ears that know weeping but also song, for unresting hands still keeping time. The new will enter singing without a summons. It enters in camo, accompanied by attack helicopters, masked thugs, and software that obviates the soul.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
Yes.
What was it? Lava, ruin, and cortisol?
Yeah.
That's a great catalog, Michael. You do that a lot. Also, what is it? What was the line you said something about, like an homage to my own faults or something like that? I feel like that's your next collection. So anyway, Michael's amazing. We all just experienced it. This next poet, there's a lot to say about Dustin. There's this quality of tenderness and really dry observation that somehow wraps itself around you in Dustin's work. But I want to tell you that he wrote this poem, and it's in the family book with the black and white cover, and this poem haunts me still. It was written, I think I read it like 3 or 4 years ago. It's called Pustule, and it's grotesque and tender, and again, it's something that is worth bringing up on the mic. So you should probably check it out. He's got that book for sale. We have that book for sale. You should buy books from the authors. You should buy books from the store. We need money. They might turn this place into an Arby's. It's a pretty good, ask when it comes down to it. The rent's cheap. But, yeah, so if you are really ready to be wowed and a little unnerved, you should make some noise for Dustin.
things to ask everybody is, does anybody have friends in here? Ooh, not everybody clapped. But there's still time for you to get some. Maybe you'll recognize some of your friends in these. This first poem's called Platonic Love. I do my best to tolerate it, because unspent love is poison. Sometimes when I go in for hugs on friends I'm mad at, I think I can quantify love at every place it's not shown. Wrap my arms around and close to a quiet crush of their bones, a smooth break of vessels. The rush of blood with skin splits leaked into mugs and bowls, and that perhaps I could tear my friend in two, shake his halves loose, drippings dropped from the entrails as dirt from plant roots. Awash after entering. When my friend comes over, he sticks his head in my refrigerator and laughs. For what his eyes find inside, I'm called names I don't like. Dogs do something similar. Their eyes look in, then back to their owners, without words to say. When my friend closes his claw around the door handle and pulls, his pulling makes the fridge a book. His jeers make the book a diary. I wouldn't befriend a pet that could do that, but I'd feed one. So what does my friend become when he feeds himself the neglected carrots, my favorite chocolate and chicken? I was taught never enter a fridge without asking. To the day, I don't enter without washing my hands. My friend has entered as if he's always been wanted, as if he could never be dirty. You can only be so angry at a pet. But the reality is, I don't have any. Though, I've invited my friend over. Oh God, look at what I've let in. A reach into dark water. I watched my friend walk into the middle of a massive lake. We used to tread shallower bodies late nights, the moon, the only eye above us. This time was different for other reasons. I could only watch from the coast. My friend said he wanted to be reached out to. Said that was something he needed, but then traveled to a place I couldn't reach. I watched him go farther out, his body swallowed by the dark waters until only a suggestion. A neck, a nose, eyes I couldn't see but knew were there. He stood, legs fighting against their inclination to sink. Exhausted, he never screamed. What was he thinking, having known I wouldn't leave? I watched him fall under, taking the water required to become a dead thing. Watched him surface again. And for hundreds of years, I waited with an urgency for the lake to dry. My flecked skin dangling from my bones. My flaked face. My body just shy of the decay, just on my croup legs from stiffening their vantage. The one made to run after him, as if there could be something noble left. The water cleared, but there were so many bodies down there. And having reached the spot where my friend was, I couldn't decide if those monsters were mine or his. This poem might be the longest title I've ever titled a poem. It's called Sometimes I don't answer when you ask me how I'm doing, because explaining myself to you makes me feel lonely. And it's for my friend Aaron, who I love very much. I've been working on being less anxious around chicken fat, Aaron. It means me no harm, even uncooked. When gripped between two fingers, it pulls with just enough resistance to make it satisfying. I make a mountain of it in one corner of my cutting board. Its texture is so different from the lean. Its texture like chewed gum, but thinner, and color like old cream in the smell. We always used raw chicken as bait for blue crabs we hoped to catch. We'd skewer a piece on the weights, watch them drop into its darker, deeper water. Did I imagine it, Aaron? It seemed where the chicken touched the water, there'd be rainbow staining on its surface. And when those crabs would lift into view, they'd be eating how my uncles eat cobbed corn. Their armored arms on either side, holding the thing in place, biting and tearing and taking the yield through the two almost alternating plates that made their mouths. I didn't understand the many scents freshness could take back then. The crabs and chicken, subhuman, but knowing I ate both, just not how the crabs did, and feeling so bad and a little scared, taking in that combination of smells at any point before my own eating. For the longest, my mother didn't understand why I tell her chicken stinks. It was recently she admitted a raw chicken's smell is gamey. These have not been your concerns for a while, if ever, Aaron, now that you're some flavor of vegan vegetarian. It's hard for me to think of anything else once the chicken is thawed. But won't you forgive me? I no longer desire to explain my world to others casually, out of obligation, because where I can't bring them in, isn't the explanation always endless? And isn't this late admission fresh proof of what we have? Okay, this is my last poem. Congrats to John. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm ready for that reading. This last poem is called Love and Malice. You can fall into the trap of believing some friendships are just harsh. Like how on the path to mastery of martial arts, people will hit you. You don't always find your way to realizing some will like hitting you, that they'll do it to hurt you. I was a teenager in the ring with a middle-aged man. On a day, I forgot my face mask. That day, his fist took a liking to my lips. The blood specked against my shirt and helmet. And then the four of us continued like this, each fist making the first's wound newer. The wound welling up around the bruise, the blood clotting and the clot popping into bits. The lighter scarlet liquid behind it streaking throughout the room. And because in the ring, violence fits into perfect conduct, and I was also throwing trained kicks and punches, I didn't think about how fists score lowest. That in point fighting, there's more to a body than fists, and more to a face than shredded lips. And though the matches are timed, I wasn't looking for an end. And though I was hurt, disfigured by my lips hot hanging, I couldn't grasp it. They say love swirls the sport. At the end, regardless of what happens, good sportsmanship calls us to hug and smile in each other's faces in aftermath conversation. So I did. Brought up in enough systems that teach such lessons, one can lose perspective on malice. I did. With my friends. That's the last thing it is. Thank you.
I've got like 9 backstories for Cal Freeman, which is funny because like most of them involve me saying, "Oh my God, Cal Freeman grew up in a dumpster," all that other stuff. And I want no, I literally did do that to him one time. But I guess what I'm going to do right now is be a little bit tender and say the only reason I say that is because I actually am from the dumpster, and I think of us as poet family. But also, it's important to note that we call him Screamin' Freeman for a reason. So if you have earplugs, please put them in your ears. Because you just never know when he's going to let out some barbaric yowl. Okay, he's just a wild, unpredictable human being. All right, I wouldn't be surprised if he had a tiny flamethrower. I don't know. Look, all I'm saying is this place used to be a bank. It's probably not going to burn down, but people burn down now. All right, so make some noise for the man of the evening. Here he is.
Taller than everybody. Man, huge thanks to Eli, Kat, and Ray, and the whole Book Suey team for letting us do this. For Sarah, Michael, and Dustin. Sarah played me a clip of Donald Barthelme doing an interview where he said he always told his students never to write about the weather. And so in the title piece in this book, I kind of write against that dictum. I'm going to start off with a poem I wrote about my mom. My mom worked for a lot of years as a nurse. This is called Thought on Thought with Fried Chicken Getting Cold. My mother stands in the common area of Applegate Nursing Home, reciting Eugene Field to a cohort of closed head injury residents. She coaches Anna Babbage, who 20 years ago was tossed from the back of her boyfriend's Harley when a truck sideswipes them on Telegraph Road one summer night. Anna blurts out a couple words before her tongue contorts into a tangle of fricatives and spit. The gingham dog, she says, and the calico cat, my mother prompts her to continue. Side by side on the table sat. And so my mother spends her lunch hour while my father and I sit and listen, and the Kentucky Fried Chicken we brought gets cold. But there is news to be gathered from the Dutch clock and the Chinese plate, from the bovine eyes of Anna Babbage, Joe Palmatier, and Ellen Wright, as they learn a stray line or two of bad verse from a pale woman in a squat brick building that might once have been the site of an orchard gate opening onto rows of apple trees. In retrogenesis, we end up as children swinging on that gate and plucking apples from the ancient hybrid trees grafted into something we can wrap our limbs around, losing all but the most distant memories. We can't agree on what is meant by mind, but perhaps it is a ragged book of schoolroom verse, a small carton of fast food grease congealing, a stone tower near the rail yards of Woodhaven, Michigan, flashing red and white lights while scrambling freight along the twisting tracks. So as you might have gathered from Sarah's reading, we like going up to the tip of the thumb in Port Austin quite a bit. There's a place up there called Hex Bar. And I came up with this nonce form a few years ago of writing these elliptical Yelp reviews about places that are real or fictive or closed down and shuttered. Hex happens to be a real place. Bean fields on a tillplane in the thumb of Michigan. Hex bar and majuscule of chipped letters on a warped brick face, whose booths are reinforced with electrical tape, whose pool table molders beneath a sanguine Budweiser chandelier, cues crooked, felt slow as sand, talc scurf at the teak base of a teak spindle, CD jukebox against the wall with all anybody's desired these last 40 years printed on placards in small block Helvetica, where behind a Formica plank stands Robert Heck Jr., who knows Fox River in the UP was the river described in the Hemingway story, but not the river after which they name the story and the beer he keeps on tap. The beer here pours well, too. Taps clean bi-weekly. The trout streams flow and pooling. A bi-chambered elegance in naming or misnaming. Heck, I say, and he starts to laugh, whose namesake and father once ran as a Republican for sheriff of these parts. I first wrote, whose father was a state senator from these parts before realizing he was mostly less than that. Whose grain elevator across the gravel parking lot still holds the vestiges. Square cinder block structure beneath the silo, concrete countertop, brass footrail, gilt Ham's mirror greening near the bottom of the first family bar. Says his dad would know exactly what to think about today's political talk, which I take as an endorsement. The four humors in me are misaligned, the yellow bile high around the eyes and sclera, in a framed picture propped against a promotional bottle of blended Canadian whiskey, Heck in all his regulars. Yokel smiles beneath neatly trimmed goatees are half ringed around a cardboard cutout of the president. I finish the remaining bites of my olive burger, swig the last of the Two-Hearted in my pint glass, think of cast-off trout with scorches of fingerprints on their scales, pay my tab, and leave. As I pull out of the gravel lot, the sky over West Kindy Road goes dark with a summer storm petrichor, then dust to mud splat on green leaves. Covetous but loyal Heck stands back there with the patriarch lionized in repetition. Ixion, who could have easily been Menlaus or Paris, whose appetites wet to temperaments that say, our times are only of our time. I'll have a pint of Two-Hearted in an olive burger medium. Back at the cabin on Saginaw Bay, I sit on a small deck in a copse of trees and wonder if I use the word copse too much, and further wonder what difference it would make if I denied myself this pleasure. A trumpeter swan outstretches its wings before a bevy. It's good to live a brief evening where swans whose plumage won't come clean in photographs are not embodiments of gods. Needless instinct, no dignity in the way they fight and frolic down the isthmus off the point. Read you a poem called Dichotomy Paradox as a Non-Fungible Token. And it's an elegy for my dad. My dad's oldest friend, Bill Watola, is here tonight, so I'm going to dedicate this to Bill and my sister. My sister Emily Jane is also here. I want a different year in clean white snow. I want the rapid senescence afforded the possum before trauma, just before that moment of collapse. It's not for play. It's so it can't remember what befalls it. A possum isn't playing possum. I want my father back. I want a different father with the same tastes and the same loves. I want a different flower than what blooms in the boxwood hedges without germination. I want to read the book Melville's Final Voyage, which my father owns in a dream. I'm not a seafarer, but I'm not faring well, I want to say. The snow that fell as heavy slush early in the day has turned to eider down. People move, and of course the mounds of snow drift and the plows drive like nobody exists. When the streets are revealed, they're irrevocably changed, cratered like the moon or the bottom of a sea. A neighbor offered me her snowblower, but I prefer shovel marks, knife edge to the driveway. It's hard to imagine what the phrase coming back must have meant once. To have it mean anything, one would have to watch the plow returning and not have picked up the trajectory of the turn before the vehicle began coming back. One would have to want to have a different life in clear white snow and want a different bloom than the one created by the snow that February day. Along the boxwood hedges, with wine in the decanter and thought-heavy thoughts for the ones who left us in the garden, my voice hissing through clenched teeth. I want a different echo than the possum. I want a different name. For as long as I can remember, I've been both annoyed and haunted by my name. I don't think this is a unique relationship to have to one's name. I imagine everyone is at times annoyed and at other times haunted by their names, but I dwell on mine far too much. Others are even brave enough to change them, and I'm not talking about some monosyllabic nom de plume haphazardly applied, but legally change them. My name is why it takes me so long to clear the car, to broom it off before starting it and scraping the windows. These are too many names and numerals for one life, but they're so indelibly correct that I hum them in the cold snow and again in the warm car. It's what I don't know back there at the root, and I'm too listless to learn that does the haunting. It's who I don't know. It's the theology of John Calvin and how he came to be known as John Calvin, the prevenient grace some of them have been afforded. I give up a little more every day. I drive to Bar 342 for corned beef sliders. I read Fannie Howe's Second Childhood as I sip Canadian Club whiskey and wait for my lunch. The man next to me has a voice like a half-empty matchbox rattling itself awake. He doesn't know how he's doing yet. He's here to retrieve a car left in the parking lot. He asks if the how is my AA booklet. Really happened. John, and John, I read in between delays. I underline the 4 instances of my name with a Keno pencil. John is his name too, I find out, and his voice isn't like a matchbox, I decide, as I note the slack skin around his throat. It's more like an accidental whisper, a light breeze over dying wheat. I tell him I'd have flunked out within a few hours, but I've got step 1 down. I don't think you can actually flunk out of their program. I read a poem called Loneliness, scarf down my sliders and pay my tab. There's too much data in this place. Keno screens, an internet jukebox, a baby shower with a chicken wing buffet. There's too much data in the enjambed lines of the book, what a friend of mine has called hangnail stanzas, for me to latch on to anything other than my name and this personification of loneliness that might engage such a name in actions like clearing snow and driving to lunch. John follows me out. A green balloon is trapped in the door handle. He warns me not to pop it. He paraphrases the book of John as he lights a cigarette, says the truth will set me free. John's my name, he explains, and that's from the book of John, and I should try to live my life by the idea that the truth will set you free. I thank him. I don't tell him how homonyms ensnare us, or how the sunlight on ragged snow renders the romance of hunkering down remote. It's too easy to drive now. For anyone to truly come back, the road would have to adopt a chronology of hours. I don't want the road to adopt a chronology of hours. I could be going out for all they know. They who paved this road with too many miles. The more of it they plow, the less of me spins out. There's an elegance to Zeno's paradox that circumvents the civic mind, and a loveliness to leftover weather that one mustn't lose in the sun. I need to have my tires rotated. Something. A good barroom needs good haruspices the way prophecy needs a self to fulfill its self-fulfilling augurs. They don't have to do much, but observe the damage and guess right. I'll heat my liver for a reading any afternoon. This next one's a Pittsburgh poem. It's called The City of Champions. That's the way they think of themselves. We were in a really good bar in Pittsburgh, and the guy was telling me all about Franco Harris's immaculate reception and how they were going to celebrate it in the coming weeks. Every purchase is a slovenly humiliation. Yet the new historicist in me wants to tell you what I bought at the Sunoco station at the corner of Butler and Holmes in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, circa some year of our Lord. A 3-pack of Trojan ecstasy condoms and an 8-pack of Tums antacid tablets. I also wanted to buy a banana but feared looking ridiculous at checkout. Another part of me, the part of me that drank wine while wandering the Allegheny Cemetery that afternoon, doesn't want to share my consumer habits with anyone. Wing beats, an incline up the staggered stone steps calving from the hillock. Gravity is different here. The upper half of you levitates toward pinnacles while everything below the sacrum feels heavy. The anniversary of the Immaculate Reception is nigh, the first since Franco Harris's death. Throughout Pittsburgh, on roads that veer into chasmic river gorges, they are planning an ungodly celebration of grace through happenstance. Must be even harder to be a Steelers fan these days with Aaron Rodgers quarterbacking. Got one more for you. This is called Schedule K1 form from Southern Pennsylvania Propane Company as a non-fungible token. We're helping my mom get her taxes together the other year, and the accountant's like, you're missing that form from the Southern Pennsylvania Propane Company. And like, my cousin had my mom invested in some propane company that we didn't know about, so we had to track down this form, and it really was a pain in the neck. My mother's CPA says she needs a K1 form from the Southern Pennsylvania Propane Company, a pass-through entity she's apparently invested in. He tells me they are tax harvesting her losers. I don't understand what any of this means, but it sounds like the language of my father's death, the kind of language I've been hearing since my father's death, bloodless drivel that keeps everyone arm's length from what's at stake. I imagine a poem called Instructions for the Passing Spirit. I write, pass through the provisional entity of the body into the southern Allegheny gorges and lacustrine pools that wane in the February sun. Harvest what is reticent to yield. Harvest the organs that were treated gently during his life. She told you at the time of his death that your father had given the gift of life. It was impossible to get over there last week in the freezing rain. The trees were cut glass candelabras, diaphanous in their ice. There was a precarity in their beauty. We knew the limbs could break and knock the power out or worse. Our world was so conductive then, stray voltage everywhere. But today, the afternoon unspools without effect, like the macadam along the flat road to her house. The dumbest dog my parents ever owned, the last dog they owned together, was euthanized last month. My mother seemed unfazed. I listened for its signature racket as I walked up to the crumbling stoop, folded quire of papers in my left hand, the waspy soffits pissing down the runoff ice. I recall something good from last December. Pan-fried pickerel on widowed china, dry German Riesling and Waterford flutes. My mother reciting Alfred Noyes and Robert Frost while drinking wine. Thank you guys all for coming out to this event. I love you all. There's so many beautiful friends in this room. And thanks everyone Book Suey.
All right, thanks for being here. You're welcome to stay and hang out and do some stuff and drink some stuff and like whatever and buy books and buy books and buy books. But yeah, so I don't know. Thank you for being here. I feel incredibly lucky to know as many people that are in the world the way they are, right? And we all just got to do this together. So round of applause and let's break it up a little.
Steve, how are you?
Make it louder.